and play on 2nd and 10. That's his youth right there.
Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins!
Today I'll be continuing with my college football game-by-game prediction and roster discussion videos. Today I'll be doing the SMU Mustangs. So SMU had the 31st ranked recruiting class in the country in 2025. They didn't have any 5-star recruits, but they had 5 4-star recruits. So starting on the offensive side of the ball, they were good here last year. They averaged 32.4 points per game. I don't expect them to be quite that good this year, but I expect them to be close to that. And at quarterback, they're in great shape with Kevin Jennings coming back. I had him in my top 10 Heisman Trophy candidates video. He didn't become the starter until the 4th game last year, but he still finished with over 3,600 yards of total offense. And he does have a turnover issue, though. He threw 11 interceptions last year, but he had 4 games of over 300 yards at passing last season. And at wide receiver, they do lose all 3 starters, but they do have Jordan Hudson coming back. He only started 5 games last year, but he's a 4-star wide receiver that's played in every game last year and had 39 catches for 422 and 5 touchdowns, averaging 10.8 a catch. I think he'll be good for them this season. And they bring in a transfer wide receiver from James Madison, Yamar Knight, who had last year in 12 games 53 catches for 605 yards and 4 touchdowns, averaging 11.4 a catch. And they return R.J. Maryland at tight end, who I think will be an NFL tight end. So he played in the first 7 games only last season because of a season-ending injury. But he was having a good season up to that point with 24 catches for 359 and 4 touchdowns, averaging 15 a catch. And in 2023, he played the whole season and had 34 catches for 518 and 7 touchdowns, averaging 15.2 a catch. Here's a clip of Kevin Jennings throwing a touchdown pass to R.J. Maryland.
Here's Jennings, another 3rd down play. Maryland, oh my goodness, what a catch!
And at running back, it is concerning, though, because they lose Bray Shard Smith, who had over 1,300 rushing yards last season, and they don't have anyone proven at running back right now. But good news is that their offensive line is going to be one of the best in the country. They've got 3 starters coming back who are all future NFL players. Left tackle Savion Beard, left guard Logan Parr, and right tackle P.J. Williams. And they bring in 2 good transfer offensive linemen to fill the other 2 starting spots. So on the defensive side of the ball, they were good here last year too, averaging giving up only 20.2 points per game. They were elite against the run. They only gave up 100.2 yards rushing per game, which ranked 7th in the country. But they did have some problems at stopping the pass, only ranking 79th, giving up 225.8 yards passing per game. I expect them to drop off a little bit defensively, but still have a solid defense. So the defensive line was probably the biggest strength of SMU's team last year. It was for sure the biggest strength of their defense, and they lose all four starters. So they're going to have a drop off here. They lose Elijah Roberts, who was one of the best in the country last season. But they do have two defensive linemen coming back that are good players that, even though they weren't starters, were involved in the rotation last year. Isaiah Smith, who had last season 32 tackles and 6.5 sacks and a pass breakup and 35 total quarterback pressures, and Cameron Robertson, who had last season in 13 games 32 tackles and 4 sacks. And at linebacker, they lose all three starters here too, but they do have Alexander Kilger coming back, who, even though he wasn't a starter, was a rotational player last year, and he's a good player. I think he's going to have a really good season. Last year, he had 56 tackles and a sack and 3 pass breakups and a forced fumble. And they bring in a good linebacker from East Carolina, Kai Zakai Barker, who played in 11 games last year and had 86 tackles and 2 sacks and 2 forced fumbles and a pass breakup and 14 total quarterback pressures. And in the secondary, there are two starting safeties that will be one of the best safety combinations in the country. They return both starting safeties, Isaiah Nakobe, who had last year 100 tackles and 3 pass breakups and 3 interceptions and 3 quarterback pressures. Here's a clip of him making an interception in the end zone.
Grayson James set to go. Into the end zone, he gets picked.
And Ahmed Moses, who had last year 73 tackles and 6 pass breakups and 3 interceptions, one for a touchdown and a forced fumble. But the cornerback position is concerning. They really struggled here last year, and they have one of two starters coming back, but he wasn't very good last season. They need to play better here. So now for the game by game predictions, starting with East Texas A&M. This will be one of those name your score kind of games for SMU. They'll be able to put in their backups at halftime. So now Baylor. Baylor has a similar offensive line to SMU, and their running backs, though, are a lot better than SMU, so they'll probably have a better run game. And Baylor's wide receivers are, I think, better than SMU's by a little bit, but SMU has a better quarterback than Baylor does, so that evens that out. Really, and defensively, overall, SMU is better than Baylor. These are similar teams, and when it's a game like that, I usually am going to go with the home team, and that's SMU. So I'm picking SMU to get a very close win over Baylor. And now on the road at Missouri State, this will be a name your score game for SMU. They'll be able to put in their second string at halftime. And now on the road at TCU. So TCU has wide receivers that can match SMU's, probably even a little bit better. And TCU has an even better quarterback than Jennings at SMU. And neither team has a good running back room, but SMU has a much better offensive line than TCU. So SMU will probably be able to run better than TCU will. but defensively they're pretty similar everywhere, and I'd say about even overall. And these two teams are similar, and TCU is the home team in this one, so I'm going with TCU to get a really close win over SMU. I really think SMU is going to split these two games in the non-conference of Baylor and TCU, but since they're similar teams, made more sense to pick Baylor for the win and TCU for the loss because of home field advantage. So now Syracuse, a team this year that I think is going to struggle to make it to a bowl game. I think SMU will be able to really lean on their offensive line in this game. I think it'll dominate the Syracuse defensive line, and SMU will be able to run the football in this game. And Jennings will have plenty of time in the pocket. And defensively for Syracuse, I like the safeties that they have coming back, but the rest of their defense, I think, is going to struggle. I don't think they can stop SMU, and I don't think Syracuse can keep up with SMU. I think SMU wins this one easily. So now Stanford, a team that is going to be a 3 to 4 win team, an even worse team than Syracuse is going to be. SMU's offensive line will dominate in this game, and they're much better than Stanford on both sides of the ball. They should be an easy win for SMU. So now on the road at Clemson, I don't think this is a good matchup for SMU because SMU is really going to lean on their offensive line this season. That'll, I think, be the biggest strength of the team. And Clemson's got a defensive line that I think can handle them. And Clemson's offensive line is, I think, just as good as SMU's is. I think they'll win the battle with the SMU defensive line. And Clemson's going to be, I think, just as good of a passing team as SMU will, and Clemson's got a better secondary than SMU, so I think they'll be able to throw better in this game. I do think this will be a competitive game, but with the game being on the road, I don't see this one quite going down to the end. I think Clemson pulls away late and wins by about 10 points. So now on the road at Wake Forest. Wake Forest will be very lucky to make it to a bowl game. SMU's offensive line will have a big advantage in this game, and they're quite a bit better than Wake Forest on both sides of the ball, and they're a much better coached team too. I think Rhett Lashlee, the head coach at SMU, is a coach that's young and I think has a good chance to end up having a very successful career as a head coach. I think SMU wins this one pretty easily. And now Miami. So this is not good for SMU because their opponent will have a better offensive line, I think, than they will, at least on paper going into this season. I'd say Miami probably has the best offensive line in the country. I think they'll dominate the SMU defensive line. Now, I do think that SMU's offensive line will be able to handle Miami's defensive line, but Miami's got much better running backs than SMU. I think they'll be able to run better in this game than SMU will. And while Carson Beck can't run around quite as well as Jennings can, I think he's a little bit better in the pocket than Jennings is. And I know defensively, Miami didn't get their players to play well as a team last year like SMU did. But Miami last year and this year does have more talent defensively than SMU. doesn't. This year, I think the defenses of SMU and Miami will be pretty similar. Even though it's a home game, I'm going to go with Miami to get this win because I think they're a better team. But I think this will be close, and it would not surprise me at all if SMU won this one. But this will put them out of the college football playoff. So now on the road at Boston College, I think this is going to be a tough one because Boston College is not a good team, but they're not a terrible team. Uh, they do have a wide receiver that can really cause some problems for those SMU cornerbacks. But SMU, I do think, has an advantage at the line of scrimmage on both sides, and I think they've got a coaching advantage. So I think that will get them through it. But I do think this is going to be a close one, and they're going to give SMU a scare. So now Louisville. So while I do think SMU will take a little bit of a step back this year, I would be shocked if they lose all three of on the road at Clemson and Miami and Louisville. And Clemson, with it being on the road and them being a better team than SMU, it didn't make sense for me to pick SMU to win that one. And Miami, even though it's a home game, it comes right after two road games in a row, and Miami is still a better team than SMU. So didn't really make sense for me to pick SMU in that one. And Louisville, though, I am very high on, and I think they're probably the second best team in the ACC. I think they're a better team than SMU. But SMU gets this one after a bye week, and they get it at home. And Louisville, the week before this game, will have a big game against Clemson. That if you watch my Clemson video, you know I picked them to win. So they'll probably be kind of worn out from that game. They may be kind of ignoring SMU because SMU would already have three losses if my predictions are correct up to this point. So I think SMU gets the win over Louisville for their one big win of the season. So now on the road at California, a terrible team that'll be struggling to make it to a bowl game, a place that just does not care about football or sports at all, really. SMU's much better coached and much better at both sides of the ball, and they'll control the line of scrimmage on both sides, I think, and win easily. So my prediction for SMU is 9-3 overall and 6-2 in the conference. Please subscribe. It's free, and you don't have to show your identity to do it. And thanks for watching, and I'll be back very soon.